of our journey of self-discovery. So we started with this search for happiness. We're all searching for happiness. I'll ask my question again. Anybody woke up today wanting to be unhappy? No. Every day we wake up with the same single goal, to be happy. Right? And that is our quest. But because we have been blessed with a higher intelligence in this human form of life, we have a great opportunity, and we can say even responsibility, to inquire about how to find real, lasting, eternal peace and happiness, and how to solve the problems that plague us and our loved ones and everyone around. Because if not, if we simply use our higher intelligence to eat nicely, sleep nicely, mate nicely, and defend nicely, then are we any different than our four-legged friends and other types of animals? No. So we've been doing lots of inquiry. And that inquiry brought us to the point last module of trying to figure out, does God really exist? And we established a very systematic proof for the existence of God. Beyond a doubt, every creation has some creator. And obviously the spectacular nature of this creation gives us some insight into the spectacular nature of the creator. And last week we talked about how Shastra, scriptures, they provide the perfect information to know about God. Because you can go to Google, you can go to Wikipedia, you can go to all sorts of sources. But at the end of the day, we must go to an authorized source. Just like if I'm going to take flying lessons, I'm not just going to ask any old person who claims to know how to fly a plane. I want proof. I need authenticity. I need to substantiate the source of knowledge. Then it can be reliable knowledge. And so the Shastras, coming in Guru Parampara, that forms the perfect source of knowledge from which we can then answer the many questions that we may have. And so it brings us then to today's module, which is Who Am I? The Science of the Soul. How many of you brought your passports today to provide identification? No? Nobody? Okay. Yes, we're not going to look at that, but we're going to answer this Who Am I? And it'll set us up for next week, beginning to then answer this very important question. And it'll take us 2 weeks to discuss this, 2 modules, to answer this question. Why do bad things happen to good people? And why do good things happen to bad people? Both of them are troubling to us. And we're going to answer that. It'll take us 2 weeks to answer. We tried to give a short synopsis last week. But it'll take us 2 sessions to really answer this question in detail and solidify our understanding. And then finally, the most important of all, how do we start to apply this knowledge in our life? What does it mean to practice spirituality while we pursue our careers, while we pursue our family life, while we pursue our status in society, in all other aspects that are currently important? How do we add spirituality to all of that? How do we practically do that? That is what will conclude the seminar. Now, some of you have been asking, does the seminar end after the 5th module? No. Actually it goes on, because after this is really the introduction. From here, we'll be going into studying the Bhagavad Gita. And we'll be going verse by verse and discussing the very potent teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. And so we'll continue to meet like this and share the teachings from the Bhagavad Gita. And again, with a keen eye on what does it mean for me in my practical application. We're not just going to discuss theory or some theoretical opportunity, but a practical realization. And that is where this journey will continue for years to come. So, the question today is, who am I? Right? This is the second of our key inquiries. The first was, does God exist? So, the science of self-realization is realizing who we actually are. It is the basis of our whole spiritual foundation. It's actually the beginning of everything that we need to know. Because if I'm going to apply something, I first have to understand who I am, right? And if we're going to solve real problems, to try to get to real happiness, I need to have a firm understanding of who am I. Right? And this seems like an easy question, right? Who am I? I can tell you who I am. Well, stay tuned. It's not so clear. And what we want to understand is who am I, and then what is my relationship with this cause of all causes, with God? What is that relationship that exists between me and God? Is there one? Or is there a new one to be forged? Or what is the nature of that, right? What is my role in this creation? Why was I put here? And what am I supposed to do? What is my duty? Finding clarity of that gives us confidence and clarity of purpose. But it all starts with understanding, who am I? And we can imagine the confusion of not knowing who am I with a quick example. I think I might have given this example previously. But suppose that you were sent into a giant office building. There are many floors in the building, many cubicles, offices, and you're pushed in and say, go to work. But you don't know what your work is. And you're walking around, you're searching, and you're trying to figure out, what am I supposed to be doing in this office? And so you can imagine, what would be your state of consciousness? You'd be fearful, concerned, confused, not sure what floor you're supposed to go on, who you report to. You need clarity of knowing, what is my function here? But when somebody tells you, my dear sir, my dear madam, this is your job, this is where you sit, then you can become peacefully situated within this. So similarly, we're put into this world. But what is our function? What is our job? What is our occupation? What am I supposed to be doing? So when we answer the question, who am I, that becomes very clear. And then our sense of purpose becomes fulfilled. So that is why this becomes very, very important. And Krishna begins in the Bhagavad Gita with this very fundamental instruction. He says, we are not this temporary body, but we are eternal spirit soul. And when we talk about soul, it's kind of a hard thing to understand. But it is an eternal soul. It never perishes. It never diminishes. Whereas this body, we know, at some point, it will perish. That's just the reality of life. We say there are only two truths in life, death and taxes. It's going to happen. That's just the nature, right? So, the Bhagavad Gita explains that we are not this body, we are a spirit soul. And so I'm going to make a statement now that may seem a little, wow, how can that really be true? Maybe even you'll feel it to be exaggeration or, hyperbole. Just file it away and understand this. That when we perfect our self-realization, actually understanding who am I, we have full and absolute knowledge with faith, acting in this knowledge, then we actually can transform our lives completely and find this real happiness that we are searching for. We don't have to wait to go back to the spiritual realm or some other. It can happen immediately. Brahma Bhutta Prasanatma Nashotati Nakangshati. That when we realize ourselves, immediately we can find this happiness. Now again, I realize that may sound a little bit, how is that possible? Just file it away. It is the actual key. It is the secret to this whole seminar. This is the transformational realization. When we have clarity of who am I, then when we start to think about all the difficulties that plague us, old age and disease and stress and fear and anxiety, confusion, we realize all these things relate to the body, but they don't relate to who I am as spirit and soul. And one then acquires the strength to be able to navigate those difficulties by remaining focused on understanding who I am as eternal spirit soul. And this unlocks the real power to finding this eternal bliss and happiness. And so again, I will fill in the blanks now, realizing this statement may seem pretty sad. And this self-realization, it's like a giant umbrella. When it's raining outside, can you stop the rain? But can you stop the rain from affecting you? Yes. By doing what? Carrying a giant umbrella. Right? I'm carrying an umbrella. It's not raining on me. But it's still raining. This is like self-realization. When I realize I'm the self. Yes, the problems and the difficulties that we experience today, they'll come. But their effect on me is no longer. By the presence of this umbrella, by the presence of this knowledge with faith that I am spirit soul. It gives us amazing ability. And so it's no magic potion that all of a sudden is going to free the world of disease, that's going to give me eternal bodily life and no more old age. No. But by this knowledge, I'll be able to separate the effects of that with the effects of who I am as spirit soul. And that is the potency of this. So let us begin to explore now. So we're going to discuss who am I, the proof of the soul, discuss how many bodies we have, a little quiz, before our quiz, and a little FAQ on the soul. I have a final topic, but we won't get to this today. Faith and scriptures, we'll come to it at a later point. So I'll start with a story. I normally end with a story, but I'll start with a story. In the Mahabharata, there's a beautiful pastime where Yudhishthira Maharaj is thirsty. And so he sends Sadev to go and get some water. So he goes to this pond, and he's about to retrieve the water with his spoon. And one Yakshasha comes and says, "No, this is my pond, you cannot take water." "No, I'm taking water for my elder brother." He says, "You can take water, but you have to answer my question." And Sadev says, "Question later, water first." And he dips his thing and boom, passes out. Not dead, but you can say things. Then some time passes and Nakul comes, sees the Yakshasa. Question first, water less. He says, no, water first. He takes his water, boom. Arjuna comes, Bhima comes. Finally, Yudhishthira is sitting there saying, what are they all doing? Are they all swimming in this pond without me? What is going on? So he goes. And he goes to this pond. And there he sees his four brothers lying still, not sure what happened. And this Yakshasha says, "You can take water, but you must first answer my question, or you'll suffer the same fate as your brothers." And so, he's going to find, what is your question? He says, what is the most amazing thing in this world? So what did he just remind us of? The Great Wall of China, the Taj Mahal, oh, this amazing iPhone, I can do so many cool things with it. Is that what Yudhishthira Maharaj said? No. Yudhishthira Maharaj said, what's amazing to me is that around us, innumerable living entities exist, human and all animals. And eventually they're all perishing, they're all dying. Yet we all who remain back think, not me, that I am permanent somehow. It won't happen to me. What could be more wonderful than this? He says, everyone is working so hard to accumulate so many things. Wealth and fame and intelligence and beauty and all these things. Yet 100% of it is left behind at the end of this body. Yet everyone is working exclusively for this and nothing else. No one's trying to figure it out. And we know 100% certain is going to happen. If we know 100% certainty that dinner will only come if you pass an exam after this module, everyone will get out pens and start writing notes. Okay? If I know 3 weeks from now I'm going to Hawaii, what kind of preparation I'll make starting today? Research what I'm going to do, get some sunglasses and a hat and some nice beach clothes and so much preparation I'll do because I know this is coming. The Yudhishthira says, everyone knows this is coming, yet nobody is preparing for that. To me, this is the most amazing thing in the world. And this Yakshasha then said, yes, okay, now you can have it. So Yudhishthira Maharaj is also telling us, we must think not about only this body, but about the soul and where it is going next. Acquiring all these things for the body, we know we're going to leave behind. But what is it that we're going to take with us next? That is the question we're going to answer. So this question of who are you is very important. We'll say, I am Sam, Julie, Srinivas. Okay. We give all these designations. I am tall, I'm short, I'm Indian, American, European, African. These are all designations. But are they eternal designations? No. They're all temporary. Who was I 100 years ago? Was I tall or short? Male or female? Human or something else? Who will I be 100 years from now? What designation can I put on that? So when we go to answer the question, who am I? We're not interested in a temporary identification. We are interested in knowing, who am I eternal? That is the question that we want to answer. So let us see, what do doctors say about us? Scientists think that this body, right, is just a collection of material elements. This is Dr. Monson. He said, we're so much calcium and phosphate and phosphorus and sulfur and all these materials. Right? This is what the body is made. This is what life is made of. So based on the assessment, then how much is the value of life? What's the worth of our body? Well, according to Amazon, it's about $2.25. Anybody is willing to sign up for that value of their life? But that's what all these materials cost. So what is it that is so invaluable? We say you cannot put a price on life. It must not be all the minerals and all the matter in the body, but it is the living force, the spirit soul. That is the thing that we deem to be priceless, that we cannot put a value on it. That is the identity of who we are. And we've used this example already in our conversations. How to understand that I am soul and not this body? How many of you drove here today? How many of you think you're your car? Anybody? No? And nobody's confused about that? Nobody says, I am in the driveway? Okay. So you understood. You came in this car, but you're not the car. So similarly, the car is just analogous to the body. The body is a vehicle that is driven by the soul. Just as your car will not move anywhere until there's a driver inside to move it, similarly, this body is just made up of a bunch of matter. But matter is inert. It's dead matter until there's a life force within it. So as clear day it is that I am not my car, I'm the driver, it should be that I am not this body, but I am spirit soul. And the importance of this is very clear. If your car is hungry, do we give it gulab jamuns? No, what do we give? Fuel. If the driver is hungry, do we give it fuel? We give it gulab jamuns. So the car has needs and the driver has needs. But they are met by different things. So the question is, we know the needs of our body. And we've been working very hard to satisfy them. But have we spent some time to find out what are the needs of me as the spirit soul? And to fuel that soul. But without recognizing I am spirit soul, I'll simply go on my life waxing, polishing, and fueling my car, and forgetting the driver inside. So this analogy is a useful way for us to contemplate how the soul is residing within the body. Okay? And it's very, very important. So as I mentioned, the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, right in the beginning, that you are spirit, soul. He actually says 20 verses emphasizing this topic. Why? Because when we talk about soul, it's a subtle matter, right? We can't see it, touch it. It's hard to understand. And so great speakers like the Lord will speak and explain it from many different angles to solidify our knowledge. But it is the first topic that is spoken within the Bhagavad Gita, because it serves as the foundation for all subsequent knowledge. And thus, in many ways, this is the most important module in our seminar, because from here we can then unlock the future answers. And we know Arjuna at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, he was confused, he was bewildered, he was scared, he was stressed out. Anybody else have some of these symptoms sometimes, once in a while? Every day. Sadly, every day almost. So I can assure you, 100% of the time, whenever we are experiencing those symptoms, it is only due to the fact that we are viewing that circumstance from the perspective, I am this body, and forgetting that I am spirit soul. Actually, as soon as we remember, I am spirit soul, that circumstance that was giving us so much trouble becomes very clear how to rectify, and the emotions from that also quickly dissipate. I think I gave the example last time about, I'm walking down the street and somebody calls, hey you, you're ugly. Pain. I feel hurt. But did they call me ugly or my body? If I remember at that moment, I am spirit soul. This is just a temporary vehicle. I can dissipate the reaction. I can't stop that person from commenting. But my consciousness can elevate to a point where I can learn, okay, I should not be upset. As much as if I'm driving down the street and somebody says, oh, I don't like the color of your car. Whatever, gets me to point A to point B. No big deal. Right? So just by that consciousness. Maybe another deeper example. A lot of mental anxiety goes through, this envy and situations of relationships. We're at a party and somebody we don't like, maybe, I hate to say the word, but our enemy is there. And then one of our good friends and them are conversing. And what is our emotion? Oh, we feel pain. Why they are discussing and all this, Then, we see another friend and we did something great for them a few weeks ago, and they haven't even had the courtesy to express gratitude sufficiently to my need. And so now I'm upset because they didn't, receive me with the proper gratitude. And then this person over here, hasn't shown me the respect that I deserve. Don't they know who I am? And like this, we go through this. There's so much trials and tribulations of the mind. So much difficulty. But at that moment, all those relationships, all those experiences, they're simply on the basis of the body. And if I remember at that moment, wait a minute, I am spirit soul, our ability to deal with those situations changes instantly. So this is the power. It takes time, but it is the amazing thing. But if we go through life thinking we're someone that we're not, in essence, that's called being crazy. If I'm walking around thinking I'm Abraham Lincoln, would any of you actually come to this seminar again? If I was convinced I'm Abraham Lincoln, you'd say, no, this man's crazy. How I can hear from him? So if I have an identity crisis, it's not a good situation. No one can be peaceful in that situation. Why do we see so much turbulence in the mind? Psychiatrists are the busiest professions in the world because we have this identity crisis. We are walking around thinking we're somebody we're not. Okay? And so this is the challenge that we have to find out. How to remember that I am spirit soul, not this body. Okay? So let us go now to understand the proof of the existence of the soul. How do we understand the presence of the soul? So anything that has consciousness, it has a soul. Right? If you stub your toe, you say, ouch. Do you have consciousness? If I hit this microphone stand, does it say ouch? No. No consciousness. No soul. It's a simple thing. Does a cat have a soul?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a consciousness. Does a bird have a soul?
Yes.
Yeah, there's consciousness. Does this TV have a soul? No, it's not. Consciousness means a soul. It's like, you pinch the toe of my body, you'll feel it. But you pinch the toe of a dead body, does it say ouch? No, because there's no soul. So the presence of the soul is seen, experienced through consciousness. You may not see the soul, but by consciousness you know it's there. Just like in a pre-dawn morning, you see the sun rise, you see the light coming in the horizon. You don't see the sun, but you know it's there by the presence of the light. So similarly, by the presence of consciousness, we know definitively that there is soul. So let us look at a few different proofs for soul. We're going to look at it from a logical perspective, from a scientific perspective, and then finally, most importantly, from a scriptural perspective. They'll all point to the presence of the soul. So, very common. When somebody dies, we say so-and-so has passed away. But what has passed away? The body is there, but something has passed away. Something of great value. Before the soul has passed away, we may wash ourselves and prepare ourselves to go meet this person, very respectable. But now after the soul is left, we have to wash our hands and clean ourselves after them. Something dramatically has changed. What has changed? The soul. Because the soul is actually what we value. Our relationship that we are experiencing, we know it's not with the body. Because as soon as the body leaves, we become that same person who was the source of our care and comfort. As soon as the soul leaves, that body becomes a source of fear. Why? Because something of great value is left. What has left? It is the soul. Right? We'll do a little logical introspection. So this is, my shirt. It's my shirt, but if my shirt is over there, will I say, I am over there? No, my shirt is there. So this is my shirt, but I am not the shirt. I gave this example before. This is my hand. If my hand is over there, do I say, I am over there? No. It's my hand is there. So this is my hand, but I am not this hand. This is my torso. These are my shoulders. This is my body. But I am not this body. So who is the mind? I keep saying my hand, my body. Even the mind and intelligence. We say my mind, my intelligence. So who is the mind? That is the soul. That is the soul. We keep referring to it all the time, but we just haven't yet fully comprehended. Because I know I am not this hand. This is just my hand. And the mind, that is the spirit soul. So if you all brought in your baby pictures, and we put them up, you say, who is that? You would say, this is me. But who is me? The body is completely changed. But who is the me? It is the soul. That is the lone constant. Actually, medical science tells us every 7 years, every cell in your body has been reconstituted. So every 7 years, you have actually a completely new body. There's not a single cell we have in our body today that we had 7 years ago. So, who is then the me? If I say this is me and all these pictures, that is the soul. So some very basic logic we can see. We are this spirit soul and we are not this body. Both should become abundantly clear. Let's look from a scientific standpoint. Michael Sabom at Emory School in Atlanta, medical school, he did this research on people who had near-death experiences. So these are people who were on the verge of death and then were resuscitated. And he interviewed them afterwards. And these are all different people who had no relation with each other. And he was stunned that they all spoke of the same experience, moving very quickly through some lighted tunnel, elevating above the body, being able to see what was happening. Some of them were talking about being able to hear what was happening in the operating room. And the surgeons were stunned at how this person who was seemingly unconscious could understand that we are discussing which drill to use. Very stunning, all this research he put into this. And he concludes his book by saying, clearly there is some separation between something and the body at the time of death. I don't know if this is what the spiritualists call the soul, but I do know there is something that separates from the body. Of course, we know through our logic and also through Shastra that it is the soul. But even science is understanding there's something there. Dr. Ian Stevenson did a bunch of research on reincarnation. Reincarnation is a very, exhaustive topic. But he studied and he wrote this book where he took 20 amazing cases, very shocking cases. Young child, 4 years old, living in a town, never been outside, but is speaking a language completely foreign to that village. How this child could know this language, speaking very unusually. Like there's 20 different cases. One case is Deepak Kapodia, this young boy. He was born in a Marathi family, but he was speaking fluent Hindi. And he kept saying how he was from Udaipur and how he had a family and this and that. And so this doctor in India called Dr. Stevenson and related. And he flew to India. And they took this boy. They told him they were taking him to Delhi for some study. But actually, they took him to Udaipur. And then he got off the train. This boy started walking. He said, "That's my house." And lo and behold, they went and found out there was an older lady there. She talked about how her husband had passed away 5 years ago. And this boy was able to talk about, where the king's palace was and, where this was. He had complete knowledge. So he could remember his past life. So even reincarnation suggests this topic of the soul. But of course, our Shastra gives us the most definitive answer. So in the 13th verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Dihinoshminyata dehe kaumaram yavanam jagatata dehantarapate diras tatranam yati. This is like the foundational verse of the Bhagavad Gita. When you build a house, you need first a very good foundation. So everything we're going to learn is built upon this understanding that I am spirit soul. And I am changing bodies. I've already changed bodies from boyhood to youth and now into old age. And at the end, I'm going to change into another body. Dhiras tatranamuyati. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Why? Because the spirit soul is eternal. That is our constant identity. So the soul is moving like this constantly. So Darwin, in his theory of evolution, he wasn't way off. It wasn't one species gives birth to another. It is that the soul can go from one species of life to another. It is a soul that is transmigrating through the different 8.4 million species of life, which we'll talk about next week. Now, one question we always get: why don't I remember my past lives? Be very grateful that we don't. It is so difficult to find peace of mind just managing this life. Imagine remembering when we were the snake and the gardener chase us with a shovel and beat us on the head. Every time we see a shovel, we think and we duck. We cannot keep sanity barely with this life. So Krishna is very kind. He says, Sarvasya Chahamridisha Nivishta Matash Natir Gyana Maporanamcha. Because I am seated in everybody's heart. And I am the source of forgetfulness. He allows us to forget just so we can have some semblance of existence here. Sometimes we go, I wish I could remember. Trust me. Ask somebody who has these experiences. It is very perplexing, very distressful. So it is a mercy of the Lord that we don't remember. So let's talk a little bit about bodies. So how many bodies do we have? Anybody want to guess? One? I heard. One? One? Okay, this life one. Any other guesses? No harm. Yeah? Four? Two? 1, 4, 2. We're missing one number. 1, 2, 4. What number are we missing?
3.
Oh, that's the answer. Yes. So we have 3 types of bodies. So let us see. We all came in one car, right? So I know the family. Let us explore and understand. So we have 3 material bodies, and we have 1 spiritual body. So we have, let me go back. So we have the gross body, and I'm going to go through each of these in detail, which is made up of earth, air, fire, water, ether. Then we have the subtle body, which is the mind, intelligence, and false ego. And then we have the spiritual body, which is the spirit soul, and that is made up of Sat Chit and Ananda. So let's go through each one. So the gross body is like the outer dress, outer clothes we wear. We see it. We can touch and feel. This is our gross body, right? And it is made up of earth, air, fire, water, and ether. Actually, everything we see, all matter, is made up of these 5 ingredients. And how is our body made up of earth? You know, if you open up a vitamins, you see what are all these different minerals, right? It's all earth. That's what our body is made up of. We know 60 to 70% of the body is made up of water. Is there fire in the body? 98.6 or 7. What's the temperature outside? So there's some furnace going on in here, right? We know. Right? If that temperature goes too high, we go into another furnace. But there is some fire here. Right? Air. There's air in the body. There are 5 principal airs. You know, pranayama is the control of the different airs. Ayurveda is based on finding balance of these different types of airs. And then ether. Ether is a little bit more subtle, but it's the intracellular space. So the point is that this gross body, when we leave this body, when we pass away, this is what is left behind. This body. And we know it ultimately, where does it go? Back into earth. Whether we burn it, bury it, leave it to some vulture, whatever the custom is, ultimately it goes back into earth. But the subtle body, this is the body that we know exists, but we don't see it. We know it's there. Everybody knows they have a mind. Everybody knows they have intelligence. Have you seen your mind? Have you seen intelligence? But you know it's there. So it's like the inner garments. We know it's there, but we don't see it. So this is the subtle body. And at the time of death, the mind, intelligence, and false ego, they take the soul to the next gross body. So when we go to our next body, we carry with us this mind, intelligence, and false ego. That is why some are able to remember their past because of the presence of the mind. So how and where, what determines where the soul goes next? How is it decided? So we know the mind has a bunch of desires. The mind is like a database. It stores desires and thoughts. And so whatever we think of at the time of leaving this body, that is what we achieve. Krishna says in this 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajantate kalevaram. Whatever you think of at the time of death, that you achieve. That's it. So if we think of our dog, we might become a flea on our dog. If we think of, the Supreme Lord, we'll go back home. So whatever we are thinking about, that is what we achieve. So how to stop getting more bodies and go back to Vaikuntha, the place of free of misery? Remembering the Lord. So it says, Antakale chamameva smaram maktakalevaram yaprayati samadbhavam yati nashtata samshaya. He says, if you think of me at the time of death, you will return to my abode. Of this, there is no doubt. So this is the determined. The mind and what it thinks of is. So this is the formula. How to solve all our real problems? He said, reconnecting with the Supreme Lord. So we could actually just end the seminar here. What else is there to know? But there's a catch. The problem is, one, we don't know when it's coming, when that question is going to be asked of us. And two, how to begin to think about the Lord in the midst of all of our different activities, so that we can be assured of thinking of Him. So the key for us, as we'll see, is to practice thinking of the Lord today. Because if I spend my whole life thinking everything else but, what is the chance at the time of death I'll actually remember? And we know the mind is a very fickle and sometimes strange thing. If you wrote down all the thoughts within your mind for one day, and you showed it to your neighbors, would they invite you home for lunch? No chance. They might even move thinking, wow, my neighbor's crazy. That's the nature. The mind has all these crazy ideas. So we have to find ways to bring control to the mind. And how we do that, it is through understanding by real identity. And so the spiritual body we possess, that is the soul. And the soul is made up of 3 ingredients: Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Sat means it's eternal. It is not born. It does not die. So who will I be 100 years from now? Spirit soul. And who was I 100 years ago? Spirit soul. It is not born. It is not born. It is eternal. We cannot understand eternal because everything in the material world is temporary. We have no experience with eternal. So it's not something our mind can process. But we have to take it as fact. That the soul is eternal. Chit means knowledge, full of knowledge. Actually, if you look at the word education, it comes from the Latin word educare. Educare means to bring out from within. Actually, all the knowledge that we are acquiring here, all the knowledge, it is lying within the soul. Because the soul is full of knowledge. It has this chit potency. We just need to bring it out. And then finally, Ananda. Why is it that every single person is looking for the same thing, happiness? It's because we all have this Ananda ingredient in our soul. This is the commonality that we have with everyone. That's why we all want the same thing. And the key is to understand that it is the soul that is the source of happiness, not this body. This body is matter. And so long as we keep trying to extract happiness from this body, we're going to keep finding the frustrations, the unsatisfied desires, the unfulfilled wants and needs. But as soon as I understand it is the soul that is the source of my happiness, then we can actually find the happiness that we want, that eternal, everlasting, permanent happiness. So one may ask, well, why don't I see this happiness? Why don't I see this knowledge? The Sat Chit Ananda. So this is the eternal nature of the soul. Suppose I have a diamond and I stick it in the mud. It's full, caked on 1-inch thick mud on this diamond. Does the diamond still have the ability to shine? It does. But what? Can I see the shine? No. Why can I not see it? It's covered. So how do I regain the shine of that diamond? Remove the mud. Clean it. And then it can be done. Similarly, this eternal, this knowledge, this ananda, bliss, the eternal nature of the soul is present within all of us. Why we are not experiencing it? Because it's been covered. Covered by what? Dirt? A type of dirt. As we associate with the material world, we pick up these impurities. The 6 specific impurities: pride, envy, anger, greed, illusion. These 6 enemies of the mind. They contaminate and they cover, they obscure the pure, sweet nature of the soul. Just like if you want to see yourself in a mirror, but there's 1-inch thick dust on the mirror. Can you see yourself? So what do you have to do? Clean. And if you clean the mirror, then you can see yourself. So how do we cleanse the heart? We use some Dove soap or some Ayurveda soap. We use some special soap. Cheto da pranamarjana bhava mahana this chanting of the holy names. When we chant the holy names of the Lord, we are feeding the soul and cleansing the covering, removing these impurities, so that the pure, brilliant, sweet nature of the soul can emerge again. Just like we can bring out the luster of that diamond by removing the mud. By chanting the holy name, it is the best and most powerful purifying agent. I'll come back to this in a few minutes. Just a quick discussion to understand the mind, intelligence, and senses. So this is like an illustration that's there. All the way in the back is the soul. In the white, that is a passenger on the chariot. The 5 horses are the senses, our eyes, ears, tongue, nose. And we know the senses go wild, right? They see something and they want it. We hear something, I want it. Very excitable senses, just like horses. But in order to control the chariot by the pull of the horses, you need some ropes, right? To contain the horses. What are the ropes? That is the mind. But the mind tying the horses, is that sufficient for the chariot to stay on the road? You need one more thing. You need a driver, somebody to hold the ropes. And that is the intelligence. So the mind may say, go do this, do this. But with intelligence, we must say no. The intelligence must control the mind. The driver must control those ropes. And if those ropes control the horses, the senses, then the chariot proceeds very nicely. Similarly, our soul, its journey proceeds very nicely. When the senses are used, not stopped, but used, and controlled by the mind, and ultimately controlled by the intelligence, then the journey is very, very simple. We'll come back to this as we begin in the Bhagavad Gita. So a few questions on the soul. So what happens after death? So Krishna says, as a person puts on new dresses, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new bodies, giving up old and useless ones. This changing of the garments. Just as we change one kurta to the next, one sari to the next, the soul will eventually change this body and get the next. That is what happens. And where the soul goes, again, based on what we are thinking about at the time of death. And the question becomes, what happens to the soul? Well, the soul is eternal. It is not made up of matter. It is made up of spirit. So no material element can touch it. You cannot burn it with the hottest of fires. You cannot cut it with the sharpest of weapons. You cannot wither it by the strongest of winds. Nothing can touch it because it is spirit. Matter cannot touch spirit. So the soul is eternal. It is never destroyed. Yes, we may change bodies, but the soul never destroyed. And do we all have the same soul? No. Even twins, born from the same mother. Everyone has their own individual, unique soul. Krishna says, never was there a time that I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Very important point. The soul remains independent, separated, not independent, it's always dependent, but separated, parcel, eternal. Even when one goes back to the spiritual world, they maintain their individuality and their relationship with God. That's why Krishna says, never shall any of us in the future cease to be. So this separation is always there. So we are all individuals. Does the soul have form? Yes. Matter is formless. If you have a latex glove on the floor, it crumples up. But putting the hand in it gives shape. Similarly, we know, when the soul leaves the body, what happens to the body? It starts to lose its form. So it is the soul that is giving shape to this matter. So there is actual form. Where does the soul live? In the master bedroom? The soul is located in the heart. This is the source of all power. Scientists are still trying to understand, what is the battery that is juicing that heart. But we know when it stops what these issues are. Where it continues, the soul is residing in the heart. And what is the size of the soul? It is 1/10,000th the tip of the hair. That used to be my picture. If you take the tip of a hair and you cut it into 100 pieces, and you take one of those pieces and cut it into 100, that is the approximate size of the soul. We actually cannot measure by material means because of the spirit, but we can understand that it is very, very small, yet so powerful. Right? That small soul can carry a giant elephant through the forest. How many people it takes to move an elephant that has passed? But this tiny, tiny soul is giving power to this giant elephant, to all of us. It's a very, very powerful substance. So whether we are big or small, we all have a spirit soul. So the question can become, well, if I'm eternal, and I'm full of knowledge and full of bliss, and am I not God? That question might one ask. So we understand that we are not God. We have to understand that God is the supreme source. Where did we come from? We came from somewhere. That means immediately rules us out as God. God is one who has no source himself. Okay? So where did we come from? What is our source? So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mabai Vamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. That all the souls are my fragmental parts. They are eternal. So what does part and parcel mean? Okay? So part means, if I have a giant gold mine, and I pull out a little bit of gold, that gold has the same qualities as the gold in the whole mine, okay? Because it's part of the mine. Or, another example, I have a giant ocean. If I pull out a drop of ocean water, it has the same chemical composition as the whole of the ocean, because it comes from the ocean. So similarly, our soul is coming from the Supreme Lord. So we have the same qualities as the Lord. But in this drop of ocean water, is the amount of salt in that drop of ocean water the same as the amount of salt in the whole of the ocean? No. So quantitatively, we are very tiny. Qualitatively, we have the same qualities as the Lord, but in very small quantities. God has them in full, but because we are His part and parcel, We have these beautiful qualities. But they're small. And parcel means we are eternally separated. When you put a drop of ocean water back in the ocean, it loses its separation. You cannot refine that drop. But that is not how the soul works. When the soul goes back to the spiritual world also, it remains its individual soul. So this parcel, Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha, eternal. Sanatana means eternal. It is eternally a fragment. It never combines back in. So this individuality that we experience today is an eternal experience, both here and in the spiritual world. That is the meaning of parcel. So in addition to the soul, there is the super soul, Paramatma. So in the heart is Atma and Paramatma. Paramatma is the Supreme Lord. When we left, He said, I'm coming with you. And He's staying in our heart, observing all of our activities, inspiring us through different ways. That's why He says, Sarvasya Chaham Riddhi Shani Vishwa. I'm situated in everyone's heart. And for that He performs many activities. So we have to now compare us versus God. And we'll look at different criteria. So in size, the super soul is infinite. But for the spirit soul, we are small. Okay? In quality, Satchidananda. What is our quality? Same. We come from the same source of Krishna Satchidananda, so are we. But again, quantitatively full. So infinite and limited. Presence, super soul everywhere. What is our presence? Barely even here, right? But we don't know what's happening just upstairs in the neighbor's house. So our consciousness is limited to our own body, our own experience. But Paramatma has full consciousness, knows what's happening everywhere. And now, to the crux of this whole understanding of the spirit soul is what is our actual position. God is the master and we are the servant. This is the definition. If I am part always means it is servant. This is my hand. The hand is part of the body. What is the function of the hand in relation to the body? It has to serve the body. If a plate of gulab jamuns come and the hand says, I want to enjoy them independent of the body, can it enjoy it? It can just make a mess. If it wants to enjoy the benefits of the gulab, it must put it into the body, into the mouth, and enter into the stomach. Because the hand is servant to the body. Because it is part of the body. So any part is meant to serve the whole. If I have some bolts on a giant generating machine to create power, what is the function of that bolt? To serve the whole. To serve the whole. And the part has value when it's connected to the whole. What does that mean? If my hand is sitting over there, does it serve any value besides to create fear? No, it has no value. When it's connected to the whole, then it has value. When these bolts are sitting in the drawer, do they have any value? No, when they're connected to the machine, then they do their part. Similarly, our soul, when we are reconnected with our whole, who is the whole? The Supreme Lord. When we are reconnected to the Supreme Lord, then we find this fulfillment of purpose. Now the question may become, why do I have to be servant? Why can't I be master? Okay? Actually, if we see, it is the rendering of service that actually gives us happiness. In this world, forget about from a spiritual perspective, from the material perspective. Everybody is serving. This nature of the soul is to serve. You cannot take its nature out. Just like the nature of water is to be wet. I cannot remove wetness from water. That is its nature. You cannot remove this serving propensity from the soul. So the only question is, whom am I going to serve? I'm going to serve somebody. You know, the president of the country is serving all the citizens. The person walking their dog down the street is serving their dog. In the office, we're serving our boss. We are always serving, no matter what. And we find different things to serve to try to extract some happiness. Ultimately. So the thing that we learn in Shastra is that when we learn to serve our eternal Father, the Supreme Lord, then we get the real fulfillment that we are searching for through all these other means of service. And the beauty of a spiritual life is that when we serve the Lord, actually all others that we are trying to serve also become fulfilled. Just like the hand. When the hand puts gulab jamuns in the mouth, does only the hand benefit? No, the whole of the body benefits. Just like when you water the root of a tree, all the branches of the tree become nourished. Similarly, when we remember and regain our service nature with the Supreme Lord, then everything that we are trying to find happiness from will actually be experienced. Until then, it will be met with frustration. Because the Lord is our supreme whole, our supreme master. And when we regain that attitude, because service is the innate nature of all of us. And it is the primary means by which we experience and express love. And we know who is the supreme servant? Who is serving who on the front of the Bhagavad Gita? What is the role of Krishna? He's a chariot driver. When we serve the Lord with full heart, actually He serves back with everything He has. So whatever we can give to the Lord, how does that compare to what He can give to us? But we must reawaken this service nature. And when we do, then we'll find real peace and happiness. This happiness that we're looking for, it is on the basis of the soul only. Again, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nashotati Nakanshati. When we come to the platform of the soul, immediately joy. Nashotati Nakanshati. No more lamenting and hankering. I want this. Because on the basis of the soul, everything is experienced. We know in the material world, no matter what we get, we won't be happy. We'll always want one more. One more zero in my bank account. One more car in my driveway. One more house. One more this. One more that. And whenever we get one more, we're all set? There's always lament. And as soon as there's lamenting or hankering, by definition, there's no happiness or peace. So how to become free of lamenting and hankering is when we elevate our consciousness to the platform of the soul. Then we will find it. And when we do, nobody can knock us off our platform of happiness. One may try, but it won't happen. It is a perfect opportunity. And so our soul, when we try to experience the material world, it is like this fish trying to enjoy on this beautiful beach chair, lots of money, fancy jewels, wonderful foods. Is the fish going to be happy? Why not? It needs to be in water, because water is its natural environment. Our soul is made up of spirit. It is meant to interact with spirit. Inasmuch as oil and water does not mix, no matter how much you try to mix it, spirit and matter do not mix. But we are trying, and by trying we find this incompatible situation. That's why we find these turbulent experiences. But as soon as we take that fish and put it back into the water, it swims on. Similarly, as soon as we reconnect the soul with our Supreme Father, then we find this eternal peace and happiness. And what is the best means to reconnect the soul with the Supreme Lord? We come to that. So I'll conclude with one final analogy. There was this lady who had a very, very nice, rare bird given to her. So she went to the end of the world to find the best of all cages. She decorated a cage with fine, fine jewels. And she went to the other end of the world to find the best polish for the brass, the best cloth to wipe. And her whole life, she went polishing this cage, shining the jewels, doing everything. And in all of her attention, what did she forget to do? She forgot to feed the bird. And what happened to the bird? We try to find so many things to do for this body. We're eating, feeding, sleeping, mating, defending. But if we forget to nourish the soul, it is like this lady who is taking so much attention to the cage, but is forgetting the most important thing, which is the soul. The soul. We know in the car and driver analogy, when there's an accident on the road, where does our focus first go to? The person. Are the passengers okay? Then we worry about the cars. Our primary focus should first be what is important, what is good for our soul. Then the needs of the body will also come along. And what is the best food for the soul? Harinam, 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 Kevalam, Kalo, Nashteva, Nashteva, Nashteva. This chanting of the holy names, it is the most potent process. It is the food for the soul. It nourishes the soul. It purifies of all that mud and contamination that we've acquired and allows us to experience this bliss and happiness that we long for. It sounds almost too simple, but it is such a powerful process. And we'll talk a lot about this in the 5th module. But this is the most important and simplest but powerful way, because the holy names are very, very potent. When you chant water, 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 does that quench your thirst? Because the word water and the substance water are two different things. But when we chant the names of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. We are calling out to the Lord, and He is none different than His names. It brings us in direct contact back with our eternal loving Father. Don't have to travel far, don't have to find a new phone number. Just chanting the holy names, we connect back with the Supreme Lord. So this is the ultimate food for our soul. So we'll talk more about this. But having this understanding, again, I am spirit, soul, and not this body. Now we have to apply it in its proper context. Once a couple, came to the seminar, they heard the seminar, and they went home. And the next day, husband said, I'm hungry, where's the food? And no, he said, we're not this body, we're spirit, soul. we have to take care of the body. The body is important, like we have to take care of our vehicles. But we take care of the vehicles in context of us as the driver. So we care for the body, but we care for it in the context of I am spirit, soul, eternal loving servant to the Supreme Lord. Okay? Thank you very much. Questions?
Yes.
Comments? Yes.
You said that before the easiest way to go to heaven is to remember Lord Krishna, Bhagwan, at the time of death.
Yes.
Right? Now, if that's what एक और चीज आपने कही थी कि if you think about anything before death, suppose you think of dog, cat, anything in the world, and so you will take that next life you will become that. So if this is the case, so simple to go to heaven, then why we see so many different creatures all around us, different species, so many cats, dogs, lions and all that. The people are thinking about them before death. That's how these these forms have come up?
Well, it's not only that, it's in relation to, so what we achieve next is based on our thoughts and our karma. So what our actions are destined for our next life. So it's in relation to, if I'm thinking my dog, it's not necessarily I'll become my dog. I could become the dog's owner again. I could become the flea on the dog. I could become my dog. It depends on the laws of karma. But the point is that the formula is very simple and straightforward. The application is difficult. And the reason it's difficult is because we have spent millions of lifetimes not thinking about the Lord. And now we're trying to begin to fill the mind with thoughts of the Lord. Right? And so the question is there, but we don't know when it's going to be asked of us also. Right? But yes, so this is the reason there are so many varieties of species of life is because there's so many varieties of desires to enjoy in different ways. So the Prabhupada used to say, if you want to eat flesh, you'll become, you can join the lion species. If you want to stand naked, you can become a tree. There are so many desires. There are different species of life that allow us to fulfill those desires. But ultimately, those desires lead to more suffering.
One more question I want to ask.
Yes.
That you had given an example about that we should always think about our spirit soul, and the body is something should be taken a backseat. By this example, you have said that when suppose you are crossing a road and somebody from the back calls out, "You are ugly." Then you said that we should, if we feel that we are spirit soul, that will not affect us. But we all know as a human being, it's very difficult that anything who is abusing us or saying bad words to us, not to react. It's that human that we react. And every time thinking that we are spirit soul, it will become difficult for us to perform our responsibilities and duties in this world.
Well, not necessarily. So, remember, the body is not unimportant. It's important in relationship to the soul. So somebody is abusing my body, I need to protect myself. I need to extract myself from that situation. Why? Because the body is a vehicle for me to render service to my Lord. So I protect my body. But I'm not protecting my body for my own sense of false ego, thinking I am the body, but in relation to my Sanatana Dharma, which is service to the Lord. So if I'm walking down the street and someone calls me ugly, I don't care. That means nothing to me. Because that has nothing to do with me and my service to the Lord. Now, if somebody's coming and walking down the street is, threatening, I have to protect myself, extract myself from that situation through whatever means makes sense. Call the police, whatever it is, right? So we have to use our intelligence. Yeah? But why I'm protecting the body, is because of its purpose in ultimately my soul's service to the Lord. So that is the consciousness. So we don't become, completely aloof, but I don't harbor the sentiments and and lament that somebody is thinking of this of me. That has no. So what we are doing is we are bringing our consciousness to a higher level. Now again, I recognize this is not like, all of a sudden we're going to walk out this door and we're going to be on a spiritual platform and never. No, we've been thinking we are this body for so long. So it's not going to happen overnight that all of a sudden I can remember I'm spirit soul. So it's a matter of practice. It's a rethinking our consciousness, and always with a practical understanding.
Is there the way the next God is according to the karma, what karma you did, according that way you get the next God, not what you are thinking when you are dying.
Yeah, so for example, so karma interplays your thoughts and then what qualifications you have. So So, for example, I may be thinking about, oh, I want to live in a mansion. Okay, I may live in a mansion, either as the owner or as a cockroach, based on my karma. But I'll be in the mansion. Right? So your karma is your qualification to fulfill your desire. But as we see in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the beginning of the 6th canto, we see that even one who has lived, a very sinful life, a Jamil, at the end of his life, called out to the Lord Narayan. And by that calling out to Narayan, he wasn't even calling out to the Lord. He was calling out to his son, whose name was Narayan. But because he was doing so in a pure state of mind, when the Yamadutas came to take him down to the hellish planets to pay for all the sins he had done, the Vishnudutas come and said, time out, stop. He's ours. And they freed him. So this is the power of actually chanting the holy names. Though we may have no qualification, by just calling out the names of the Lord, they're so potent. They overcome all of our disqualifications. Question over here?
Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, I just want a little clarification based on the medical terminology. We use that unconscious. So, I would rather say subconscious because unconscious means soul is still there with the body, even though patient is unconscious mode.
Okay.
Is that right? That makes sense.
I don't know, sure. Subconscious. The point is that they are near death. I'm sure there's a technical term. Any other questions or comments?
Can I share a small short story which I just read yesterday?
Sure.
I want to tell you just a very short one, if you allow me.
Yes.
Yeah, once a Shishya asked his guru, what I'm asking you, a Shishya asked his guru, what is the best time to pray to the Lord? And the guru smiled and said, it is one day before you die, one day before your death is the best time to pray to the Lord. And Shishya said, but the death has no time, we don't know when it's coming. We don't know that. When the death is going to come. If it comes, we know that the story is altogether different. So the guru smiled and said, and every day is considered the last day of the day.
You should prepare as if it's coming tomorrow. It's like, we know the quiz question, we don't know when it is, so we should show up to class every day prepared. We don't know when it is, and it's also nothing to fear. I mean, why the spiritual, they're not fearful of death. Because there's nothing to fear. Dirastatara muyati. Have faith. My Lord is our ever well-wisher. He'll take care. Any other questions or comments? Everybody's got the... Shall we play our quiz game? Okay, get out the phones.